They thought putting you in that environment would break you. But what they didn't know is that the fire only refined you. The rejection, it shaped your discernment. The betrayal, it taught you how to love without losing yourself. The silence, it made you listen for God's voice more than anyone else's. See, chosen one, you weren't born into that toxic family by accident. You were placed there on purpose, not to suffer, but to awaken. Not to become bitter, but to become bold. Not to belong, but to break generational bondage. And even though you didn't understand it at first, even though it hurt, even though you cried alone, even though you questioned God more times than you can count, you're starting to see it now. You are the light born into darkness. And that kind of placement is no mistake. That's divine strategy. Let's be real. Most chosen ones come from dysfunctional, toxic, emotionally unstable family dynamics. You were surrounded by people who didn't see you, didn't support you, didn't understand your heart. In fact, they often mocked it. They silenced your truth. They labeled your sensitivity as weakness and your intuition as rebellion. But all along, it was your spirit they were reacting to. It was the anointing on your life that made them uncomfortable. Because when you walk in divine purpose, even before you know who you are, people around you feel it. They sense that you're different. And in broken families, difference is dangerous. Why? Because it disrupts the cycle. It threatens the norm. Your peace exposed their dysfunction. Your dreams exposed their limitations. Your empathy exposed their coldness. Your light highlighted their shadows. You were born to stand out. But in your family, standing out meant being targeted. Maybe you were the scapegoat, always blamed for things you didn't do. Maybe you were the emotional caretaker, forced to be mature before your time. Or maybe you were ignored completely, emotionally starved in a house full of noise. No matter how it played out, the pain was real. But so was the purpose. Because through it all, something in you survived. And not just survived, it awakened. Your family may have tried to silence your voice, but you kept speaking. They may have tried to minimize your dreams, but you kept dreaming. They may have tried to manipulate your mind, but you kept seeking truth. They couldn't kill what God placed inside of you. And that right there, that resilience, is the gift. You weren't born into a toxic family to suffer forever. You were born there to observe, to awaken, and to break free. To see what was wrong, and choose differently. To feel the dysfunction, and rise anyway. To be the one who says, the pain stops here. And because of that decision, you're not just healing your own life. You're healing generations. See, the enemy thought he could trap you in trauma. But all he did was train you in spiritual warfare. He thought if he surrounded you with confusion, you'd never hear God clearly. But all that noise only made you seek God more deeply. That toxic family wasn't your prison. It was your preparation. It was your training ground. It was where you learned patience, spiritual insight, emotional intelligence, and deep compassion. Because you had to. Because there was no other choice. But that's why you're different now. That's why your empathy is sharp. That's why your boundaries are sacred. That's why you can walk into a room and instantly feel what no one's saying. It's not paranoia, it's discernment. And it was built in the battlefield of your upbringing. This is why the chosen ones can't pretend. You can't fake love. You can't tolerate manipulation. You can't sit in rooms where gossip is the currency. Your soul rejects what once held you captive, because God pulled you out of that for a reason. And here's where it gets even deeper. Most people who come from toxic families repeat the cycle, not because they're bad, but because they don't know better. But you were wired to question things, to challenge the norm, to look at dysfunction and say, why is this considered normal? That's spiritual intelligence. That's a prophetic eye. That's the anointing. You weren't meant to fit in, you were meant to disrupt. And sometimes the first place disruption begins is your own bloodline. It's painful, yes. You'll be misunderstood. You'll be called disrespectful for setting boundaries. You'll be guilt-tripped for choosing peace, but you'll also be free. You'll sleep at night. You'll have clarity. You'll experience the joy of creating a new path. And eventually, others may follow. Because one healed person in a toxic family is enough to start a revolution. That's why you're not crazy. You're called. That's why you never fully resonated with their energy. You were being preserved. That's why your soul always knew, I love them, but I can't be like them. You don't have to hate your family. You don't have to carry bitterness. But you do have to choose yourself. You do have to honor the assignment God placed on your life. And if that means stepping away, if that means redefining relationships, going no contact, or building emotional distance, then do it. Not out of anger, but out of alignment. Because you cannot carry the weight of everyone else's healing while neglecting your own. And here's the real shift. One day you'll look back and thank God for it all. You'll thank Him for the coldness, because it taught you how to generate warmth within. You'll thank Him for the emotional starvation, because it taught you how to feed your spirit directly from Him. You'll thank Him for the rejection, because it taught you that your value isn't determined by other people's inability to love you. What you went through didn't destroy you. It revealed you. It peeled back the layers of people-pleasing. It stripped away the need for validation. It shattered the illusion that love has to come with pain. And what's left now is pure. It's you, the real you, the healed you, the spiritually grounded you, the version of you who is no longer trying to explain yourself, but is just living in full authenticity. This is why you were chosen, not because you were perfect, but because you were willing to feel, to face, to grow, to break the cycle. And for that, the heavens are rejoicing. Your ancestors who never got the chance are cheering. Your future children will thrive because of the brave decision you made to stop repeating what you survived. That's not just powerful. That's legacy. You didn't ask for the pain. You didn't want to carry this burden. But something in your soul agreed to it long before you arrived here. Because before the world knew your name, God stamped your spirit with an assignment. And part of that assignment, enter the fire, walk through the dysfunction, and come out refined. This is not a theory. This is divine architecture. Everything in your life has been building you into the version of you that could handle a calling. See, it's easy to look at the toxic family you were born into and think it was some sort of curse. But in the spiritual realm, it was actually a commissioning. You were sent in as a disruptor, a divine seed in barren soil. Let's go deeper. Chosen ones are often the first in their families to wake up, the first to question religious dogma, the first to call out abuse, the first to choose therapy, the first to speak the truth that everyone else is afraid to admit. You didn't come from generational wealth or emotional intelligence. You came from survival, silence, and shame. But now, you're becoming the bridge. You're the one who looked at trauma and said, "This ends with me." And don't get it twisted. That decision wasn't just noble. It was spiritual warfare. Because when you said yes to healing, the enemy lost generational ground. When you stopped accepting abuse, you shifted timelines. When you chose solitude over codependency, you activated spiritual maturity. And the ripple effect of that choice, it's going to bless people you haven't even met yet. But healing isn't glamorous at first. It's lonely. It's quiet. It's full of grief. Because to heal, you have to first admit the truth, that your family may never apologize, that they may never understand you, that they may continue to speak against you even as you evolve. And yet, you still rise. That right there is what makes you dangerous in the spirit. You're no longer reactive. You're responsive. You're no longer desperate for approval. You're rooted in alignment. You're no longer tolerating dysfunction. You're building a new definition of love, peace, and connection. Let me speak to your spirit now. The child in you that still wonders if you were the problem. You weren't. You were simply more aware. You noticed things no one else wanted to talk about. You felt things others were too numb to feel. You saw through the fake smiles and silent suffering. You were too awake for people who chose to stay asleep. And that's what they didn't understand. They thought you were rebellious. They thought you were disrespectful. But really, you were just spiritually awake in an emotionally shut down environment. And that kind of light, it intimidates people living in darkness. So they projected their pain onto you. They tried to mold you into someone smaller, quieter, easier to control. But the more they tried to shrink you, the more your spirit stretched. The more they silenced you, the louder your soul screamed for truth. The more they ignored you, the more you turned to God for guidance. It was all part of the preparation. Because now, you don't just know theory. You know pain. You know survival. You know what it feels like to rebuild your self-worth from the ground up. And that kind of wisdom, it can't be faked. It's embodied. It's divine. And it's exactly why people are drawn to you now. You carry something real. You carry presence. You carry discernment. You carry compassion, not from a book, but from the trenches of your own story. And that kind of authenticity, it's magnetic. It's healing. It's disruptive in the best way. People feel safe around you because you've learned how to hold space for yourself first, and then for others. You know what it's like to cry silently in your room and still show up the next day with a smile. You know what it's like to be gaslit by the very people who should have protected you. You know what it's like to question your own intuition, only to discover it was right all along. And now you trust yourself. Now you don't beg for love, you embody it. Now you don't tolerate chaos, you cultivate peace. Now you don't seek validation, you walk in quiet confidence, knowing that your worth was never up for debate. And while your family may still be stuck in old cycles, you've chosen a higher path. You've chosen growth. You've chosen clarity. You've chosen to release the fantasy of who they could be and embrace the truth of who you are becoming. And the beautiful part is, your healing will ripple outward. One day, someone in your bloodline will look at the path you carved and say, because of them, I believe I could be free too. That's legacy. That's kingdom impact. But I won't lie to you, the road is hard. There are days you'll feel isolated. There are holidays where you'll feel like the black sheep. There are moments you'll ache for the family you never had. And in those moments, you'll have to remember this. You were never alone. God was always with you, guiding you, shaping you, holding you. And He still is. Every time you broke a pattern, heaven celebrated. Every time you chose peace over people-pleasing, angels rejoiced. Every time you cried out for healing, instead of hiding behind coping mechanisms, God smiled and whispered, "That's my child." You were born into that family to witness the dysfunction, not to become it. You were sent there to observe, absorb the lessons, and then transcend the cycle. And that's exactly what you're doing. Your story isn't a tragedy. It's a testimony. You're not a victim of your past. You're the vessel of transformation. Keep going. Keep healing. Keep rising. Because the pain you endured wasn't in vain. It was the soil in which your purpose took root. And now, you're blooming in places they never thought you'd survive. By now, you've probably realized something sacred. That everything you went through, every painful conversation, every silent cry, every moment of rejection or confusion, it all had a purpose. You didn't just survive a toxic family dynamic. You outgrew it. You transcended it. You became a new blueprint. And that's something incredibly rare. Most people repeat what they were taught. Most people echo their upbringing. But you interrupted it. You looked generational trauma in the eye and said, "This stops with me." That's not weakness. That's divine power. And let's be clear. You weren't chosen despite your circumstances. You were chosen through them. God trusted you with that battlefield. He trusted you to be born into spiritual scarcity because He knew you'd discover the abundance within. He allowed the dysfunction not to break you, but to build you. The rejection, It taught you to seek validation from within. The criticism. It sharpened your discernment and emotional intelligence. The abandonment. It led you straight into God's arms. The chaos. It forced you to find your own inner stillness. And now, you move differently. You don't need the room to understand you anymore. You don't beg for closure. You don't over-explain. You simply walk in your truth and let the light of your presence do the talking. That's growth. That's strength. That's what it looks like when someone chooses evolution over bitterness. You may still be healing. You may still be learning how to trust, how to open your heart again, how to connect without fear of betrayal. That's okay. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're rebuilding something sacred that was never modeled for you. That takes time and grace. And I want you to hear this loud and clear. The healing work you're doing in silence is shaking things in the spirit realm. Heaven sees it. God sees it. And your future self. They're already so proud of you because you're not just changing your life. You're changing your lineage. Let that sink in. There are children not even born yet who will live in more peace, more love, and more wholeness because of the decisions you're making right now. That's legacy. That's impact. That's what being chosen really means. It's not about status. It's not about being perfect. It's about saying yes to the work, the deep, uncomfortable, but transformative work that most people run from. You didn't run. You stayed. You faced the darkness. You chose light. And you're not done yet, because God is not finished with you. In fact, the deeper you go into healing, the more space you create for blessings to find you. Emotional clarity makes room for divine alignment. Spiritual boundaries attract higher connections. Self-worth opens the doors to opportunities that were always yours, but required the healed version of you to step into them. So if you're still in a place of solitude, if you're still navigating life with minimal support, know this: isolation is not punishment. It's preparation. God hides his most powerful warriors until the right moment. He refines them in quiet places, and when it's time, he reveals them in ways no one can ignore. You will rise, not because you're forcing it, but because you've done the inner work that naturally elevates you. People will wonder how you got so wise, so grounded, so radiant. They'll assume it was luck, favor, or coincidence, but you'll know it was warfare. You'll know it was a process. You'll know it was God. And when people finally come around, when they apologize, when they want access, when they realize the truth you've carried all along, you won't need revenge. You won't need validation. You'll just smile, bless them, and keep moving forward, because you're no longer anchored to their chaos. You've built your own peace. This is your story now, a story of divine rebellion. A story of rising from dysfunction into destiny. A story of pain repurposed into power. And you're only getting started. So don't look back. Don't shrink. Don't question your calling. You were sent to break cycles. And that's exactly what you're doing. Walk with your head high. Walk with your heart whole. Walk with your spirit unbothered. Because you are proof that the chosen ones may be born into fire, but they rise like gold. Now that you've heard this powerful message, I want to hear from you. If this spoke to your spirit and you're ready to rise above every generational curse and walk fully into your divine assignment, take a moment to comment. It stops with me below. Let the world know you're the one who broke the cycle. Don't forget to hit that like button if you feel inspired, and share this message with someone who needs to hear it. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you never miss a message of encouragement, empowerment, and divine truth. Remember, you were chosen for this moment. If you want to go even deeper and support the channel, consider joining my YouTube membership for exclusive content, behind-the-scenes access, and more. Or you can use super thanks to show your appreciation for the effort that goes into creating this content. Your support means the world to me. You can also check out my shop tab for merchandise that helps support this channel and keeps the messages flowing. For more videos like this, click on the videos in the end screen. Let's keep walking together in faith, and as always, stay connected to your divine purpose. God's plan is unfolding, and you are part of something greater than you could ever imagine.